If you thought episodes 1 and 2 of The End of an Era were epic, just buckle up because we just got some of the most vulnerable and personal content we have ever gotten from Taylor Swift, you guys. Episodes 3 and 4 of the doc just dropped on Friday. My jaw was on the floor the entire time. We got behind the scenes look at so many important things. I can't wait to recap for you. There's so much to talk about, so let's get right into it with episode 3. Welcome to Swiftly Sung Stories, where we unpack the Taylor Swift universe, one era, album, and lyric at a time. Think of it like English class, but it's all Taylor Swift and none of the boring stuff. I'm Jen, your Swiftie English teacher, and class is in session, so come on in and meet me in the margins. We open the episode with a home movie. It looks like it's Taylor performing at a state fair or something on this small stage. This announcer says, 12-year-old Taylor Swift. And that would make this video from 2001. I just realized how old I am because my brain went, that wasn't that long ago. Yeah. So she comes out. She's already strikingly tall for 12 years old. And she very confidently says, "Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm going to be singing some songs for you guys tonight." She's got an American flag t-shirt on, and there's a giant American flag behind her. I don't know if this is before or after 9/11. There's no date on the video. But at any rate, this is really common imagery we see from early Taylor performances. Remember that national anthem one she did when she was like 9 or whatever? I think they used it in Miss Americana. Americana. That's intentional. She has framed herself as this all-American girl from the very beginning. And as we talk about our larger story, that's just keep that in mind. Either herself or her parents have had marketing and image on the brain since the very beginning. We get a voiceover from Andrea. She's talking about how hard Taylor Swift has worked since she was little. But we also realize how hard Andrea and Scott have worked since the very beginning. A 12-year-old can't just fly herself to a festival 2 states away and perform on her own. They had to have been financed and arranged by her parents. And Taylor's incredibly lucky to have these supportive parents who've always helped her achieve her goals, even up until now. Andrea says, she, from a very early age, always knew exactly how she wanted things to be, and she was always planning what her headline tour would look like. And we knew this intuitively about Taylor, right? We saw it in the last 2 episodes. This is all her brainchild. The tour, the sets, the songs, the whole thing. She has a vision. So it's really interesting to see she's always been like that. Not just since her career blew up. She's never had anyone take the reins in the creative process. That's all her. And it always has been. But then we hear something really important from Andrea. As they toured through different states, the theaters kept getting bigger and bigger. The tickets were selling out faster and faster. And Andrea says, I never heard her say the word fame or money. It was always just about the opportunity to go and sing her songs and have everyone else singing those same words back to her. And what I heard when Andrea said this was that it's always been about the music and it's always been about performing. Those are her loves. And the rest of the stuff, the fame, the money, the notoriety, that all came as kind of a natural consequence of this. And later on, we're going to hear more about that part of life that she really struggles with. But it's also a big part of the Showgirl album and era. There's the fame versus the girl. So Andrea continues, I don't think that when you were doing that, you ever for a split second take the time to think it will become this. And we get a shot of the fireworks going off over the Eras Tour stage. The crowd is deafening. And that's the this that she's gesturing to, the size of it all. And not just the tour, but her entire career. And that's when we get our title card, The End of an Era, Episode 3, Kismet. Kismet just means meant to be or fated. So after they've given us this very short synopsis about how she got to where she is, it's implied with the title that this getting here, this massive stage on this massive tour with this massive success, this wasn't just pieces falling into place. Like she said in the first episode, it was fated. It was destiny. It was predetermined that she would land in the space at the top of the industry because she decided she would be there. Fate and destiny are also big themes on the life of a showgirl, and she even uses this word kismet in the title track. So for a moment, I thought maybe this was an Easter egg. We'd be diving into the making of Showgirl in this episode, but we don't. We are now at the end of the European tour, and we get a subtitle that tells us that they are taking everything apart, the entire stage, and shipping it all back to America. Costumes, sets, everything, and it takes 6 weeks to arrive in these shipping containers. So we're plopped right into the middle of that 6-week break as we get into this episode. But keep Kismet in mind because that's really the narrative thread that ties this episode together. So we're inside the 6-week break, and we're going to see a little bit of what everyone gets up to as they try to rest and recharge for the final leg of the tour. We get to see many of the dancers, the vocalists, the band, the crew at home. And the major theme, which they all talk about here, is how being at home is just so different from being on the road. We get to meet Jesseline, who is one of the background vocalists, and she tells us that you're going from a life where everything is planned for you down to the minute to a totally different life where you have to do it all yourself. You essentially have to learn to adult all over again. And then the other Taylor Banks, who is one of the dancers, says, you've basically checked out of life while you're on the road, like the real world doesn't exist. And what they're talking about here basically is living a regimented life versus a self-planned or an independent life. And this is the same reason that a lot of people struggle when they leave college or when they leave the military, because once you're used to your schedule being decided for you, it's really hard to go back and have that much autonomy. And it can drive you a little bit batty. It's really easy to lose your way. We get the sense, however, that Taylor doesn't have that kind of problem. She's just always working, no matter where she is. As she called herself on Colbert, a passionate, hyperactive person. It also probably helps that she's lived this kind of life on the road ever since she was a teenager. So there's really no adjustment period needed. And it also helps that she probably has a team that can take care of the day-to-day laundry and bills and car registration. I'm assuming if I could hire help for that stuff, I absolutely would. During Taylor's time off, we meet her in New York with her stylist, Joseph Cassell, and they are coming up with some new costumes for the final few shows of the tour. We see a bunch of new costumes as she tries them on, and then we get a voiceover as they show footage from past tours, the Red Tour, Fearless, etc. And she says, nostalgia is a huge part of the Eras Tour. If you were 12 years old during the Red era, you're going to remember certain things that you saw and certain things that you felt. It's my job to bring those feelings and those visuals back to you. Wardrobe is one way to do that. So she's setting the scene. She's giving us context as to why we're about to see a bunch of footage of wardrobe. Many of us didn't need this context, didn't care. We just wanted to see behind the scenes of these outfits and how they came up with them. Next, we hear from Joseph Cassell, the stylist, who tells us that part of why he can do his job so well is because the Eras Tour is all about the fans. And he is a fan too. So this is echoing what Taylor just said, that the costumes aren't just for her, they're for us. They're for us to remind us of her past eras, and in doing that, she's reminding us of our past eras. And combining those visuals with those emotions that are contained in those songs, that's the nostalgia factor. And that this whole tour has been built to conjure up this nostalgia within us. Now we're seeing some older clips of Taylor and Joseph working on tour outfits, and then Joseph goes on to say, I love the organic way that Taylor and I work. It's like this secret language that we have. We get this clip of her sending him basically like Pinterest boards, even though Pinterest may have not even been around then, I'm not sure. But she's conveying basically the vibe that she wants, and then he executes the vibe. But just like we saw her working with Mandy Moore in the last episode, there's a sort of shared creative brain between them, right? Like she doesn't have to articulate every aspect. She just kind of gives the general idea, the vibes that she wants, and then her team picks up on that and runs with it. Like, remember when she told Mandy that she wanted woman in an insane asylum / wood nymph? Like, this is the same thing, but with costumes. It's just this sort of creative telepathy between the two of them. But this tells me two things. One, she has great communication with her team. And while others are carrying out the execution, of course, it's her brain behind it. And just like Taylor's mom said, it's always been about what Taylor wants. It's her vision. She's coming up with the ideas herself. And two, she is probably an incredible person to work for because most of her team, most of whom we've met by now in the doc, have been with her since she was a teenager. Even her stylist, which celebrities are notorious for changing stylists, especially when they change style as frequently as Taylor does. Basically every era she changes her look. That tells us so much about what she's actually like, because staying in one job for that long is incredibly rare, and especially in this crazy industry that is so full of ego and big changes and personal evolutions, she must just be one of the biggest gems to work with if people stay for that long. And in a bit, we're going to find out that that is exactly the case when we hear some more of the dancer's stories. She's an incredible boss. So we're going through the new costumes. And Taylor says something that really stuck out to me about the costuming. She says, "I'm dancing all night. Yeah, my feet ache, but I'm wearing Louboutins. It is a privilege for these feet to ache like this." She's not just talking about those custom red-soled boots that she gets to wear. What she's talking about is the privilege she has to be able to have this incredible career that she's gotten to have, and the privilege of the tour. It sold incredibly well, grossed more than any other tour ever. But it's also about the fan support, because the epic nature of this tour would not exist without us, and she would not be giving it her all, dancing until her high heels break, if it wasn't for us, always chanting more. And like her stylist said, the Eras Tour is all about the fans. This is the privilege that she's talking about. And she knows that it is incredibly rare, and she's incredibly lucky to have this level of career and success where she can put on a 3.5-hour show. Not only do people show up, but they sell it out almost immediately. It's the highlight of their year, and she can't do enough dates. She could sell out for years to come. So we are still with Joseph. We get to see some of the wardrobe up close, which is really cool. We've never seen it really that up close before. And then we get perpetual fan favorite, the Versace Lover bodysuit. And Taylor talks about the power of that costume because it is the opening costume for the show. It needs to have a major wow factor, but it doesn't just wow us, it wows her. And she says, "It somehow heals me from having the stomach flu. It can take me from being utterly exhausted and I'm just like, nope, if I'm wearing this, I gotta level up. I gotta be on the level of this outfit." So what she's talking about here is basically her armor. And this is a major theme on Showgirl too, as we talked about in the last few episodes. You will cover the wound, no matter how deep it is, as she says in the prologue poem. And then there's also the line, "pain hidden by the lipstick and lace." This bodysuit is her armor, and when she puts it on, she not only transforms into Showgirl Taylor, putting on this persona, but it also protects her from everything that human Taylor is going through. She's Clark Kent turning into Superman, or Peter Parker putting on the Spidey suit. It's the same thing. So we see her trying on stuff for the Tortured Poet set, and then we get a look at the Reputation bodysuit, and we start focusing on the effect that that has on the crowd. And if there was one costume that we all went absolutely nuts for, it was this one. And that is incredibly interesting because it never changed. It was the only costume that never changed. And yet we were still as obsessed with it on day one as we were on the 144th show. It was always the black with the red snakes. I don't know if we went nuts for it just because it was amazing, or because Rep is always one of our favorite albums or eras, or if we were just always waiting for it to change. We were on the live stream squinting and trying to zoom in on TikTok to see if those snakes change color. And then we finally get to see her, the gold Rep bodysuit. And we get to see Taylor try it on for the first time, and it doesn't fit. The boob cups are in the wrong place. They're too low. And this is where we really get to see how Taylor reacts when things don't go her way. She's frustrated. She explains that basically she doesn't want her boobs to pop out. She has to do so much athletic stuff in this bodysuit. But her team is telling her, number one, they're in a time crunch. Number two, we ran out of fabric. In the entire world, this fabric doesn't exist. And it just might not be possible to get it to fit for Miami. And what we see Taylor express is just disappointment, but it's not disappointment in her team. It's not in the people. She's more like disappointed for the fans, or disappointed in herself, because she wanted to surprise us with this new bodysuit. It's been this huge anticipatory moment, Also, we were clowning for Rep TV really hard at this point. We thought Reputation Taylor's version was coming. It was not, but we thought it was. So you can see the look on her stylist's face. He's disappointed. He's panicking on the inside. But we're left with a little bit of a cliffhanger on this narrative, and we zoom over to Mike, the band leader back in Nashville. And he's showing us this massive tour wall in his house, and he explains that after each tour is over, they each get a framed plaque, and it details, how many shows, how many fans, how many tickets. And Mike says he has been working with Taylor since the Fearless tour. And he says, "I strapped onto that rocket and have been able to do all of this with her which is great. This is the first time we hear about Taylor's career as a skyrocket, but it's going to come back around when we see Sabrina in the 4th episode. But this is also a testament to Taylor as a boss, because who else could conjure that kind of loyalty? Who else could you tolerate working for 16 years? Half of that on the road away from your family and children. Who would make that worthwhile for you? And then we learn another really sweet fact about Taylor as a boss. Mike pulls out a guitar out of the closet. It is a hand-decorated guitar that Taylor gave to Mike's first daughter, Sophie. And it has photos on it of Sophie and her mom, Sophie and her dad, and Sophie and Taylor. And it reads, "She loves you, he loves you, I love you." This is the sweetest, most thoughtful gift in any context. But just think about this. A boss handcrafting a gift for his employee's first child. Who does that? Who does that? Taylor Swift does that. Of course she does. And we zoom in on Taylor, who's going to tell us about her tour family and really what they mean to her. She says, "It's so wonderful to be able to carry a professional family with you as you go through phases of life and as you go through ups and downs and heartbreaks." We get a couple shots of this tour family, and Amos tells us there is such a special bond among the touring family. It's like having another family. They are the only other people in the world who know what this is like. And what these voiceovers are doing is giving us context for what's to come. This is Taylor explaining why she's going to spend so much time in this doc letting us get to know the family, because she's never really shown us them before. We haven't really met them because they are a big part of her life, especially when it comes to the Eras Tour. They are like family, not only to her, but to one another. And I would imagine an incredibly stressful and taxing tour like this, leaving so much of yourself on that stage, it's necessary to have that bond and that support of the people around you. And we're about to learn that this is true, and it's incredibly special, this connection that the whole Eras Tour family has. We zoom in on Jesseline, and Taylor says of her, "Jesseline is one of the most talented, resilient, loving people I've ever been around." Of the backup singers, Jesseline is the newest. And by newest, I mean she's only been with Taylor since Reputation, only 8 years. Still a long time in show business. But the Eras Tour road for Jesseline was incredibly difficult. And she tells us, "While on tour, I was diagnosed with breast cancer." And if you're like me, you just did a confused head tilt because you remember her being out on that stage every night. Even if you were watching on the grainy live stream, you remember seeing her. And having breast cancer is not compatible with touring and singing every night. She explains that she'd do the shows on the weekends, and then in the middle of the week, she would fly back to LA for biopsies and come up with a treatment plan. After the treatment plan was accomplished, she unfortunately has to take off 6 months of the tour for chemo and radiation. But if you've known anyone who has gone through chemo and radiation, you can see this is where Jesseline's plot line is going. And your jaw is on the floor because chemo destroys your body. And she's only taking off 6 months. 6 months. That's insane. That is incredible strength and resilience, just like a certain boss we know. So we follow her. We see her lose her hair, go into surgery, trying to recover. And then we learned, just like us during this time, she was sitting at home alone in the middle of the night, watching the live stream on TikTok. But it wasn't for long because we see her ring the remission bell at the hospital. She's completed treatment and she is itching to come back. She finished radiation and got on a plane. Like, incredible. And Taylor says of her, "The will to come back and do the hardest show ever, none of us could believe it. I still can't." So that is Jesseline's incredible story of resilience. We're going to see her again a bit later on. And now we're back to New York and we see Taylor working out and joking around with her trainer. If you were watching her do those pull-ups and you saw that scar that was on her forearm, I know exactly what that's from. That's a baking scar. That's from a sheet pan burning you right here when you reach into the oven for it. Yeah. I know those well. They always happen right there in the same spot. I can't count how many I've had, and I don't even work in restaurants anymore. They do fade away and they go away pretty fast, but Taylor was definitely baking while on this short break from tour. So she's doing these pull-ups and she finishes and she says, "Strong dislike, 2 thumbs down." And this line struck me not just because it's funny, it is, but because of her mindset. It's like, I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to do it. It's hard, but I'm going to do it. And this is such a microcosm of her larger attitude, you know? That sucked. Strong dislike, 2 thumbs down, but I did it. And God damn it, I'll do it again. And she does this because it's with the larger goal in mind. And we're going to get more on this when we get into what this takes physically to put on a 3.5-hour show. She tells us, "I've never worked out this much in my life. It's horrible." But there it is again. She's going to do it. She's going to do it anyway. And we learned that 6 months before she even started rehearsing, she started this intense physical training program. She says she was running on the treadmill every single day at the tempo of the songs I was playing while singing them out loud. I couldn't even do that for one song. That is incredible. But she's explaining why she's doing this. And it's partially because the stage is so goddamn big. It's the length of a football field, essentially. And she has to cover every inch all the time because that's why the stage is so big. She wants everyone to be able to see her to get their money's worth. She says she runs something like 8 miles in a single show. That's just the running. That's incredible. So we found out a little bit of the physicality of the tour. Now we are back on the road to Miami, the first show back after this final break, and they are all gearing up for the last leg of the tour. We see Taylor climb out of her SUV at the stadium, wearing that iconic yellow sweatshirt and the jeans that we all immediately coveted, and she comes out and says to the videographer, "Can I do a video out in the stadium with my cat?" And she's got this vision of exactly how she wants it filmed. And she says they'll go find a place in the stadium. And we all know exactly what spot she picked because this video she's planning went mega viral. So we see them filming this. Taylor's holding Olivia Benson, whom she says is her best behaved cat. And then it all has to stop because Taylor has her sweatshirt on backwards, which is hilarious. But of course, the spot she picked is sections A12 and A13. Which stirred up a ton of clowning for what was to come next. Little did we know that TS12 would come so much faster than we could ever imagine. So the whole team is gearing up for this run through that night, one full dress rehearsal. So they're firing on all cylinders after this last break from the show. We zoom into the final costume fitting. We finally get to learn what happened to the rep bodysuit. We hear these loud cheers and Taylor pops out of the dressing room in the gold red bodysuit, and it fits. And Taylor is elated, and she says, "How does it fit so well?" Because remember, the cups were like way down here, and her boobs are way up here. And that's not an easy adjustment to make, both with the type of fabric and with the construction. She hugs her team, she thanks them, and this is closing that narrative loop and shows us again what kind of boss she is. When it went wrong, she didn't scold them or throw a tantrum. She was just bummed. But because she's an incredible person, they took this on. They wanted to do this to please her, and somehow they pulled it off. She's so appreciative. She's so grateful. And she's going to debut this new rep bodysuit. So now we are into dress rehearsal, a complete run through of the show. And Andrea tells us that Taylor told her, "Mom, I'm trying to go back in my mind and run through the show, and at a certain point, it just stops." And I love this moment because all my favorite moments seem to be about Taylor's brain, but it just tells us so much about how she thinks. And her memory is like this movie playing in her mind. Like, my brain works this way too, but her mind's eye seems to be so vivid and so detailed, and she just has this incredible relationship with memory. Number one, she has a really good memory, which I can't relate to that. But she can also store these memories like a film reel in her mind. And she can just kind of go back like she's playing on YouTube and just play these things back. And that's also how she writes her songs, because she goes back into these memories. She remembers everything, what it looked like, what it felt like, and she pulls these emotions and puts them into words. The brain this woman has, I just admire it so much. She's also a perfectionist, And we learn that the Eras Tour is never winging it ever. She says, no, we stage manage the shit out of this show. Hence, while they are doing a full dress rehearsal for a show they've already done 131 times. Then we meet Rick, the stage manager, and we can see him during this rehearsal giving everyone their cues. And we always knew that Rick existed, like, in concept, but to see him actually doing this job, which is basically like an air traffic controller, but he's controlling the stage and the actors and the lighting and the music. He's controlling it all. And it's really cool to see. And it's a really technical show, right? Like, everybody has to be in the right place at the right time or it doesn't work. Or as Taylor tells us, she will fall down a hole where the lift is, or the pyrotechnics will go off on her head. And that isn't just a Taylor job to be in the right spot. That is an everyone job to be in the right spot. Everyone who is on that stage has to be in the right place at the right time, or else it's dangerous. And also, if someone's off, it sets off this domino effect and then throws everyone else off. It's an incredible technical feat. And there's a huge opportunity for mistakes. But Taylor says, I legitimately celebrate every single moment where something doesn't go wrong. And then we get a peek into something that we were all incredibly curious about, and that is the quick changes. She disappears under the stage in one place and pops back in another in less than a minute in a totally different outfit. It's like a magic trick. It looks like a magic trick, and it kind of is. We meet Taylor's dressers. She has two, Justina and Shannon, who tell us that the max quick change time is 75 seconds, and the quickest is 39 seconds. Taylor's mom tells us that it's like watching a NASCAR race, and it is. We get some shots of Taylor running through the understage. She's hunched down while unzipping her gown and climbing up the stairs and taking sips of water all at the same time. And we learn that she has 4 quick change booths under the stage, which seem to be at the point where she exits the stage. They do a quick change, or at least part of a quick change. And then she has to run or ride on that wheelie pulley thing to the other side of the stage to her next entrance. And Taylor says that this is panic inducing, but it is that panic that drives her never to be late. And we will learn that no matter what, she will make that stage entrance. And she tells us this story. I remember one time I was running from the Evermore era. I trip over the hem of my dress, bust my knee. I skid the palm of my hand off, hobble into the quick change room. Blood's coming down my hand. I'm changing into the Reputation bodysuit. The skin that's flapping off, I just pull it off. More blood. They don't have a Band-Aid back there. And then she hears that Ready for It intro. And she says, wasn't late. Wasn't late for the intro of that song. This is her show must go on attitude, right? And she tells us, I'm not going to acknowledge this. I'm bleeding on stage from my hand, which is very visible, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to pretend nothing is wrong. It's always been like that. My hand's always been half gone. Mind you, she has to use her hands to play in the show. Not only playing guitar and piano, but like holding the mic. And half of her skin is gone. That is incredible tenacity. So they've just done the whole run through. She comes off the stage and she tells Amanda, I only made 3 mistakes in 3.5 hours. And this is where we again see the perfectionist side of her, because as she's running through these mistakes with Amanda so she can correct them, we see that they are so tiny and so minor that I don't think anybody would have noticed except maybe the other dancers. But I think what's going through her head with this is continuity, right? Like, she wants every fan to get the exact same experience, and not only in the room, but she's of course highly aware that people are watching on the live streams every night, even more than are in that room. And she wants it to always look the same. No matter which night you go, except for the costumes, it will always be the same. Every arm movement, every hip shake, every turn, she wants it to be perfect, and she wants it to look identical. And she says, while going through these mistakes and correcting them, sometimes I get like a cat stuck in a tree, which is funny because we know that she thinks in narratives and metaphors. But here she's also speaking in similes. She's poetic at all times. I love her. So the mistakes are all ironed out, and we are now into the first show in Miami. But a storm is coming, like a literal storm. We see her management team meeting. We finally see Scott, her dad, which I think this is the first time we've seen him in this one. We've seen a lot of interviews with Andrea, but I don't think we've seen Scott yet. They're having this huddle about the storm, and they're on a Zoom meeting, which seems like it's with a meteorologist. Like, they're very concerned about this. They're handling it very professionally. They are monitoring winds, not just outside the stadium, but inside the stadium. And we're about to learn a little bit about what it's like to play outdoor stadiums all year round. And it's important to remember that where we're at in Miami, we're heading into hurricane season. Like, this is serious. This isn't something to mess around with. Taylor tells us that the weather elements of playing outdoor stadiums is at times delightful and exciting. At times it is frustrating. At times it feels really, really horrific. And then we get some shots of some of the most epic weather they've encountered along the way. We get that iconic quote of Taylor in the green dress in Massachusetts. This is the rainiest rain show that ever rain showed ever. We know that she loves a rain show, but come on, like that was a little extreme. So there are small weather things they need to worry about, like some wind, some rain. But then there are more extreme conditions like high wind, which threatens the stability of the stage and the sets and the lighting. And if there is lightning with a metal stage and electricity everywhere, like that's bad. Standing water and electricity, also bad. So they would need to cancel if lightning were to happen. So that's really what her team is huddling about is this wind factor, which could also topple things over. People could get hurt. And they need to be on the lookout for lightning. So then Taylor tells us that sometimes the weather just adds this dramatic element to a show. Sometimes it's not that serious. She says, then you get situations where it's just kind of wonderful. Just cinema, just a drama, just adds to it, adds to the show. If there aren't other weather situations at play, she says. And I think when she says that, we all conjured in our minds that iconic Reputation rain scene where it looked like she was conducting the weather, like the magical witch that she is. And this whole weather narrative is going to come back around in the end of the episode. Miami definitely delivered the weather. Now we are backstage, and Taylor is plotting the surprise songs with her mom. Every time we see her in a surprise song rehearsal, it's always just Taylor playing them for her mom, which is so sweet. And this is for the first show back in Miami. She's doing a mashup on piano of This Is Me Trying into Daylight. And narratively, this makes perfect sense. This Is Me Trying is about bottoming out and struggling, but reaching out for help. And Daylight is about getting that help or finding that solace in another person. And your outlook changes because you feel seen and you feel valued when you didn't before. It's a gorgeous mashup. And then this song is cut over scenes of Jesseline, whom we know survived breast cancer. And we see her putting on her hair. And these two songs are really narrating Jesseline's story, right? Like hitting rock bottom, getting diagnosed with breast cancer. Then after you've gone down into the depths, rising back up and seeing that daylight once again, thinking like, okay, I'm going to be okay now. The storm has passed. The sun is out again. But in Miami, the storm has not passed. And we see these overcast skies. You can feel the humidity and the pressure of the storm that's threatening the concert. And now we are inside the huddle for the show, and we get to hear from Jesseline. I feel so seen and heard and loved, she says. And there's one thing, many things I admire about you, but there's one thing I'll never forget. She says this while she's standing in the circle, but she's looking at Taylor. She's addressing Taylor. And then she tells the story. She came to Taylor's birthday party and she tripped on the sidewalk. She was having some chemo side effects. She face planted on the sidewalk outside of Taylor's birthday party in front of all the paparazzi. But she goes into the party and she says, when Taylor is introducing her around, she says, guys, this is Jesseline. We sing together. And I said, that's a way to put it. And everyone is laughing because Jesseline sees this as she is backup for Taylor Swift, right? Like she's just a backup singer. Taylor is the main attraction. And this we sing together feels like Taylor is pulling her up to her level, like they're equals. And Jesseline doesn't work for her or come second to her in Taylor's mind. But Taylor then says, that's literally what it is. And in this moment, one of many moments where we've seen what it's like to work with Taylor, this tells us so much. No one says that, Jesseline goes on, but it just says something about who you are and how humble you are and how you like to shed light on people and make them feel bigger than they think they are. And in that moment, I needed that. So Taylor has taken this hugely embarrassing, regretful moment, Jesseline falling on her face in front of the paparazzi at Taylor Swift's birthday party, and turned it into something where Jesseline doesn't just feel seen, but she feels validated, she feels important. And all that embarrassment is wiped away. And now this is a moment that she remembers for the joy of it and not for the shame of it. That is a powerful thing. Rewriting people's stories by making them feel worthwhile and worthy and valued, not just for what they can do, but for who they are. And zooming out, I think this is what Taylor Swift, whether she knows it or not, does for all of us, not just the people who know her personally. She makes us feel seen and heard and valued because she connects with these universal emotions. We see this person setting an example for how to view our own stories, our own lives, how to express ourselves. And we see her as this sort of beacon that has felt shame and felt embarrassment and felt heartbreak and felt joy and felt love. But she gives us permission to feel these things too in our own stories. Like we're having a really hard time. We can look at it through the lens of this is me trying. We're coming out of a really depressing time and we feel optimistic again. We can see daylight. She's given us this language and this framework for embracing our world, experiencing our worlds, and connecting to our emotions. And that is really the greatest gift of all. Jesseline goes on, it's never a me, it's always a we. And what Jesseline is saying is that this magical person connects us not only with ourselves, but she makes us feel like a part of something bigger. She's providing this community, created this community. We are in this together. And that's larger than the Eras Tour. It's larger than the music. It's larger than Taylor Swift. It's belonging. And for so many of us, Taylor and her music and her world have brought a sense of belonging when we maybe never felt like we belonged anywhere before. We see them doing their F shit up cheer before the show, and then they're off to Miami night one, and it is windy as hell. We see the dancers struggling in those wings in these really high winds. And can you imagine the core strength needed to wear that thing? They struggle getting onto the stage. They struggle getting in position to where it like folds over Taylor in the lift. And they struggle getting off the stage. And you can see the relief when they finally disconnect those wings and step out. And then after they've just done a full body workout, they have to quick change into the man. But I love seeing this really candid look backstage at all of the moving parts. It's just incredible, like the amount of people, the amount of work this takes for just one song, let alone 44 songs or whatever the set list ended up being. It's immense. Then we get a close-up of the new gold rep bodysuit on the rack. And we know it's coming. We know it's going to be a huge moment. And it was. But I think what the documentary leaves out of this moment is that at that time, we were clowning hard for Rep TV, like hard. And so when she popped out in the new gold bodysuit, that was kind of our signal, like Rep TV is coming. And we really thought it was. And so part of these like huge reactions, like if you look at it from the outside, you're thinking, oh God, all these Swifties are so insane because she changed the color of her bodysuit. Like, no, that wasn't what it was. It was, we thought that our favorite album was getting a re-release, a re-record. That's what we thought. We didn't know that the Masters sale was coming back. Like, we didn't know that she would soon own her work. So she giving us this like gold bodysuit, that was the Easter egg that we were looking for. And we thought that it was coming. We thought Rep TV was coming. So we get some fan reactions on TikTok. It's just madness. If you were at the show or the live stream that night, it was epic. Like 131 shows. It had been the same exact outfit when every other outfit changed constantly. So this was like such an anticipated moment. And the rain show was rain showing, and we get a voiceover from Taylor. I am very well aware of mysterious forces at play that I will never have any control of. And during this voiceover, it's spliced with clips of the rain show in Miami and clips of Taylor as a kid getting her first guitar. So now we know we're not just talking about the weather anymore. And she continues, So all I can ever do is use every tool in my toolkit. I'm going to paint with every single brush I've got. I'm going to be detail-oriented as possible. I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can to give these people everything that they want. And then we're spliced with videos of Taylor as a teenager playing her guitar. And she continues, but sometimes there's something that happens that's amazing, that's not something you can plan for, and not something you can manufacture. You know, there's still got to be some magical, beautiful mystery to life. And now we're spliced with videos of toddler Taylor singing and dancing and being a little entertainer. And it's here that we are reminded of the title of the episode, Kismet, fate, destiny. It's the same story that Taylor's been telling all along. And she got here both by working her ass off and by some mysterious magical force that's larger than her. It's a combination of both. And she tells us that she controls everything she can. And she did, in some ways, control her trajectory in this career, in this life. But if everyone got to where they wanted just by working hard, anyone could be a pop star. So there is some magical, beautiful mystery. And this is something that Taylor thinks a lot about and writes a lot about, this combination of fate and hard work. And I think she can see that it's really both. She can't explain it all. She can't explain the phenomenon she's become. We see it, we understand it, because she's remarkable and we know why we connected with her. But in this documentary, she's really zooming out and taking in the larger view, everything she's become. And there are still elements that remain a mystery to her. That is the end of episode 3. So we began the episode with teenage Taylor singing at a state fair. And then we end the episode with toddler Taylor entertaining her mom wearing a leotard. So we are looking at the entire trajectory, and she calls it Kismet. So as we are heading into episode 4, keep this in mind. What was fated? What wasn't fated? And how does Taylor see her larger trajectory? We're going to see. So let's dive into episode 4, entitled Thank You for the Lovely Bouquet. We open this episode with Taylor in Electric Lady Studios back in 2023. She's recording tracks for Tortured Poets, and we're also seeing clips back in Miami and clips of Long Pond Studio recording more of TTPD. So the previous episode was the trajectory from childhood to adulthood. And now we get the sense that we are zooming in on just the last few years, the last few eras. So I think we're going to learn how she got here. So during these clips from the last few years, we get a voiceover from Taylor. I definitely think writing music is a form of therapy, she says. And in these clips, we see her recording parts of Who's Afraid of Little Old Me and Clara Bow, which are both songs about her relationship with celebrity and this fame monster that's always followed her around. And she goes on, the Tortured Poets album is just like this purge of everything bad that I felt for 2 years. It was a really rough time in my life, so the songs reflect that. We see her recording the final line of The Black Dog, Even If I Die Screaming, and then someone in the room says, that's the end? And she just shrugs. She's like, yeah, sounds like I'm gonna die. Then the voiceover continues, feeling like I'm not a person. I'm just this big conglomerate that no one sees as a real human being, and like, especially not the men that I date. And in this whole process, just being like nothing works. There's no one for me in the world. Then we get our title card, The End of an Era, episode 4, Thank You for the Lovely Bouquet. The title is, of course, a line from the title track, The Life of a Showgirl. And in that song, the bouquet represents props. But the way I read into it is it's like surface level props. The flowers are for the showgirl, not the girl underneath. It's like, thanks, but you don't really know who I am, or you don't really want to know who I really am. And that's what she's getting into in the intro to this episode, that we see her as like this mythical figure almost, like not a real person. And that's exactly what The Life of a Showgirl is about, is the battle between the showgirl and the human girl underneath. Go back and watch my recap of Showgirl's themes if you really want to dive into that. So here she's putting it in the context of romance. And this has been such a long-running question that I think has been going through Taylor's mind and her sort of emotional universe. And I think it began earnestly with The Archer. Who could ever leave me, darling, but who could stay? But I think in this episode, we're going to find out what kind of person could stay. And we segue into that with a clip of Taylor and her mom in this huge dressing room. Andrea comments on the size of the room, and Taylor says it's because it's built for a 53-person football team. It's a locker room. And so we get the hint that we're going into the Travis of it all. And Andrea is going to tell us this story of how they met. She says she was looking at Taylor headlines on the internet, probably as she always does, and she says, and I see this guy came to your show, and he brought a friendship bracelet, and he wants to meet you. Andrea decides to do a little digging, as any mom and any good Swiftie would do, and she gets the inside scoop on Travis from her cousin, who is a big Chiefs fan. So she says to her cousin, tell me about Travis. And the cousin says, he's the nicest guy, and he really loves his mom. Andrea is immediately sold. She's like, how can I hook them up? So she calls Taylor. And Taylor says in that phone call that Andrea says something like, you gotta start doing something different. And what she means is you need to start dating different kinds of people. So even though Taylor has been anti-sport ball players because she thinks they won't have anything in common, it turns out they actually have a lot in common. And this is my favorite quote from Andrea. I thought it was the sweetest thing in the world that he came to your show. He brought you something from your world. She's talking about the friendship bracelet. To me, that really says a lot. And it does, him showing up with this carefully planned bracelet. He's invested. He's saying, I know your world. I like your world. I support you, and I want to get to know you. We don't get to know the details of who ended up contacting who, but Taylor tells us that on their first date, he had to explain football to her, and he explains it in a way that Taylor understands, using similes and metaphors. Like it's violent chess, she says, is how he explains it to her. Like high-speed, angry chess. And then I sort of became obsessed with him, and therefore became obsessed with learning about football. So not only did he enter her world and he accepted her world and loved her world, he let her into his world in an accessible way and explained it in this literary way, which is how her mind works. So that's instant connection right there. So from the get-go, the way she's relaying this, we can tell that Andrea told her to do something different, and something different showed up. Greatest surprise of my life, Taylor says. So now we are in New Orleans, and we segue into the next segment with Taylor getting flowers from Travis. Of course, the episode title is Thank You for the Lovely Bouquet, which means a little bit more than just these flowers, but we'll get into that later. So we get the sense that this is an ongoing thing before every show, because she says, I love that he doesn't even have to sign them anymore. She knows who they're from before she even looks at the card. Now we are in rehearsal before the NOLA shows, and Amanda Balin is explaining that now that they're in the final stretch, they're going to put in some swings. And if you want to look at this in football terms, this is like if you're going to win the game by a mile, you can put in your bench players. It's a way to give everyone experience and practice and give some others a break. And swings is a theater term, right? Where like actors rehearse all of the parts so that they can jump in at a moment's notice, in case of injury or illness or whatever. So all of these dancers know all of the parts or most of the parts. And then we meet Wiley, one of the male dancers, and we learn it has been his dream to dance in Ready for It, even though it's traditionally an all-female track. We see him practicing, and he absolutely kills it. He's amazing, and all the team is cheering him on. And Amanda tells us that she's going to ask Taylor if Wiley can do it if the costume fits. Then we hear a little bit from Taylor, and she says, in this tour, we're not trying to make any points about gender, but we really don't have any restrictions. We got guys in heels and leotards and stuff, and we just really don't think too hard about it, right? We overthink some things. We let some things just kind of be naturally individualistic in terms of our casting and our dancers' expressions. And even though Taylor says she's not making any points about gender, the effect is that she is. The biggest tour the world has ever seen does not assign traditional gender roles to the cast. And I hope that the effect will be that more crews will adopt this model. Wiley tries on Amanda's costume. It fits. So Amanda asked Taylor if he could do it. And Taylor says, yes, 100%. That's amazing. So it's full steam ahead. and we are going to come back to Wiley in a little bit. But first, we get to see Taylor prep another round of surprise songs. This has been my favorite part of the doc so far. She's again with her mom, which is just so sweet that it's always Taylor playing these for her mom, and she calls her mom her lucky charm. She starts with Hits Different on the piano and then goes into Welcome to New York. So narratively, Hits Different is about this breakup that just kills you and you don't know if you'll ever get over it. And then Welcome to New York is about starting fresh, starting over. So the storytelling makes sense. And then this is the same kind of theme that she did in the last episode, which this is me trying going to daylight. So the skies were dark. She didn't know she'd make it through. And then suddenly she gains this optimism again that everything will work out. So it's interesting to see her mindset during this period within these surprise songs, because it's the same mindset that we see so much of in Showgirl. She was sleepless in the Onyx Night. Now the sky is opalite. We get a little background on how she prepares for the acoustic set, and she does prepare, we learn. She thinks these song choices through and the transitions, and she practices. And what I see her doing when she's running through these is picking up parts of the song that make them cohesive and help them to tell one story when they're combined. So she's not just matching up different songs because they have the same beat or the same chords. She's choosing them, I think, for the story that they tell when you add them up. And if you watch the final show, that last surprise song set, that's kind of the culmination of this surprise song storytelling. And it is the most beautiful, epic example of these little narratives that we get every night. But then we get a glimpse of what was really happening behind the scenes, and not just with the surprise songs, but with her life, and specifically her personal life. She has never been this candid before. And she says, there were points where the tour was the only thing that was keeping me going in my life. But there were never points in the tour where I thought, oh, you know what? I want to quit the tour because the tour's hard. No, my personal life was hard. If you existed at all online during this time, you kind of knew what was going on. We knew her personal life was hard. But she's never talked about it explicitly. Never like this, period. This is the most candid we have ever seen her about her love life. And now she's going to address something that she's never said outright before. She says, I went through 2 breakups on the first half of the tour. And that's a lot of breakups, actually. And as she's detailed in her music, these were not small breakups. They were huge, massive, gut-wrenching breakups. But she's telling us this, I think, for a couple of reasons. And number one, I think it's because she wants to contrast this feeling, these breakup feelings, with the Travis of it all. We can't see why this is so special if we don't understand how heartbreaking her romances were before. And 2, she's positioning the tour not as something that she had to do with a broken heart, but something that held her up while she had a broken heart. So she goes on, the show was what gave me purpose and what I could use to get me out of bed. So the tour has never been the hard thing in my life. The tour has been the thing that has allowed me to find purpose outside of the shit that was going wrong in my life. In other words, what she's saying is that the tour was her lifeline. The tour is what fed her. When everywhere else she turned, she was just starved and depleted. And then we get the quote that will live on in infamy forever. Men will let you down. The Eras Tour never will. Truer words have never been spoken. I need this on a t-shirt immediately. And this isn't just true for Taylor's world, for Taylor's men. It's true for our world as well, because this tour gave us joy at a time when the world felt totally empty of joy. And it gave us hope, and it gave us something to look forward to. So it did the same thing for her. And that's pretty special to know that we were all kind of in this same place when this single event, this monumental event, that was the thing that united all of us at a time when we felt really divided. But while we're getting this really candid interview with Taylor, it's spliced with her singing clips of Hits Different for her surprise song set in NOLA. And her mom is in the room, and Andrea says when she's finished, it really tells your story. And Taylor's like, wait, what? Who are we talking about right now? Andrea says, Travis, your boyfriend. And Taylor's like, no. Like, Mom, these are literally 2 breakup songs. I have so much to say about this moment. Hits Different is obviously a breakup song. But I've always seen Welcome to New York as not a breakup song, but maybe like a moving on or moving up song. Maybe caused or inspired by a breakup, sure, but not like in and of itself a breakup song. But Taylor sees it as a breakup song, which is really interesting. But here's how Taylor explains this mashup. I read into it that like this person is going through a horrible breakup and they're like, I can't move on. And then they do, and they go to a big city and they like find this other sense of self. So number one, most obvious point I want to make is that she is talking about characters. She's not saying, I read into it like I am going through this horrible breakup. No, she's saying this person, this character. I've always said that Taylor writes characters and people like to yell at me about it, but here it is, plain as day. This story exists outside of her own story, and it lives on its own in this song and in any song. So while she may be inspired to write these emotional songs from her own experience, there's also this element of characterization within each story. And while part of this might be from her perspective, like this person could be a past version of herself and she's not that person anymore, so it feels kind of far away, that is still writing a character. Writing someone outside yourself, that is writing a character. And then number two, these really are mashups. And in the mashup, it gives new meaning to both songs, or it creates all new songs when she mushes them together. So she's like taking a red pen to her songs. She's pulling out the parts of the story that she wants to tell. And then in combining them and making this entirely new song, it has an entirely new meaning. Like for me, this has been always the most magical part of the acoustic set. But to see her behind the scenes crafting these intentionally and explain how she draws this new meaning with this combination of songs, it's incredible to see. We knew she was doing this, and we knew it was intentional, but just to see it play out and to hear her thought process is just perfection, storytelling perfection. Andrea has to go. And as she's going, Taylor says, she doesn't have to convince me to be in love with someone who's good for me. Which is just this funny moment of like, God, Mom, I know, stop it. It's the mother saying, I know what's best for you. And Taylor's being like, guys, go away. But Andrea replies, this one's easy. And what she means by that is there's no convincing needed. She's already convinced he's right for her. And we're about to learn a little about why. Taylor says, Travis is like, he's a real yes guy. In terms of life itself, he's just up for anything. And then we get proof that he's up for anything because we see clips of him rehearsing with Jan and Cam for I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. And he is just there taking direction. He's like, tell me what to do and I will do it. You are the experts. We already knew this about Taylor. Like she's a yes person. So a meeting with a fellow yes person is perfect. So Taylor goes on, she's talking about this vaudeville skit that comes between The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived and I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. And she says, if there ever were a point to put Travis in the show, I think this would be the one. And she's not just talking about physically in the show, though physically I don't know where else you would put him. Like he's not a dancer or a singer, but narratively, she's shot down by this heartbreak and dies on the stage and then gets picked up and brought back to life. And it's a metaphor for surviving heartbreak and finding someone who will always pick you up and never shoot you down. And as she tells us in Showgirl, and especially in The Fate of Ophelia, he is that person who picked her up. So now they're talking about how Travis's appearance came about. And at first she thought it was a joke, but then she realized he was serious. You would do that, she says. And he goes, yeah, it would be hilarious. Like just casually, yeah, it'd be hilarious to go on stage, biggest tour there ever was, biggest artist there ever was. Sure, why not? That is a yes man right there. No ego, no afraid of embarrassing himself, up for anything, probably afraid of embarrassing her and dropping the baby. We already knew that, but this pairing, I think we can all see by now, is just pretty perfect and magical. She says, if you're serious, we'll get you a tux and we can put you in. And do you want to do it? And he's like, put me in. And this isn't just in the show. This isn't just put me in the show. This is, I am all in with you. And like she says in the prologue poem for Showgirl, if he's in, you are too. And he's all in. In her world, there's no hesitancy. There's no fear. He might not know the whole Swiftie world and all the lore, but he'll learn. And if you don't have a partner like this, if your partner does not support you like this and love you like this, you are with the wrong person. Taylor has learned that. I have learned that.
And hopefully you won't have to learn that because you will have already found your person who cheers you on and supports you and is interested in you and all that you do. Then Taylor says something really interesting about Travis, and it's this: the way that he just comes to life when the lights are the brightest, the lights are never too bright for Travis. And she's not just talking about stadium lights or stage lights here. She's talking about the spotlight, the massive attention. And this is what she's been struggling with for several albums and eras. It's how this harsh spotlight of celebrity can blind the wrong people. You know, who could ever leave me? I'm Taylor Swift. But who could stay when this spotlight is shining on me 24/7? Who can stand beside me and not shy away or run away? We already knew the answer, but Taylor tells us explicitly, this is the person who can survive. This is the person who can withstand the spotlight. He is not a hothouse flower to my outdoorsman. He is a fellow outdoorsman with me out in the wild. This is the person who can stand beside me in the blinding spotlight of celebrity. He can withstand it. And not only does he withstand it, he shines when that light shines. He burns brighter, just like she does. And we get to see clips of this epic appearance by Travis. And Taylor tells us, I can safely say that that was the loudest it ever got on the Eras tour. Now we are zooming back over to Wiley backstage, and we get some of his backstory, just like we got some backstory on Cam in the previous episodes. We learned that growing up in Hawaii, he felt like he never fit in because he wasn't like this super masculine surfer boy like the rest of the local kids. And when he found dance, that's when he felt like he found his place and his purpose. But going into the industry professionally, he'd been told he was too feminine, flipping his hair, like, stop, you have to be a boy, you have to be a man dancer. But this job, the Eras tour, wasn't one where he was told he had to look a certain way or act a certain way. He didn't need to change himself or his body to get here. And he says, I have never been filtered as a person working for Taylor, and that's beautiful. That may seem small, he says, but as a dancer who's been told for almost 20 years to change, to filter himself, it is one of the most meaningful things to me. So we know that Taylor wants her team to be individuals. She wants them to shine in their own right. But where does that come from? Because she has a lot of opinions about how creatively, how she wants things to be. But that doesn't apply to the people. I think personally it's because Taylor has always been told that she needs to change. She can't sing, she can't dance, she's a man-eater, she's a bad songwriter, she needs to straighten her hair, she needs to grow her hair, where's her curly hair? She needs to dress this way or act that way. Just think of all of the criticisms that have been lobbed at her. She draws her line at the crew. Like, she knows that that stuff will be hurled at her, but she's never going to turn around and lob it at her team, which is probably why it's important to her, because she knows what all that stuff feels like, being told to change and how much it hurts. We're seeing Wiley practicing Ready for It. And then Amanda tells him, do it again, practice again, because you're going on tonight. And the team erupts in cheers. This is it. Like, he's going to dance Ready for It. We're going to see him do it a little bit later on. This is a big moment. But now we're cutting to Taylor and Sabrina backstage rehearsing for Sabrina's cameo on the Eras tour. Sabrina, of course, opened for Taylor on earlier legs of the tour, but since then her career has just absolutely taken off. She's had an incredible year and a half, and I love that she comes back, even though, like, it hasn't been that long. It feels like a lifetime ago because so much has happened. She went from this opening act to like a star in her own right. And we see Taylor comment on this, and she says, this is like a dream scenario for any artist for how they want their career to go. It's also very similar to how Taylor's career went between debut and Fearless. So they're singing Espresso together. The harmonies are beautiful. And then they're joking about how they're going to say the most iconic line in the song, I'm working late because I'm a singer, which is, you know, like, life of a showgirl encapsulated in one line. So Taylor does the line, and then she mashes it up with, is it over now? And it connects because of the line, let's fast forward to 300 takeout coffees later, which is, of course, coffee connects to espresso. It takes a minute for Sabrina to make that connection, but I don't fault her for that because those two songs don't really sync up thematically. But as she always does, Taylor makes it work. Then they go into Please, 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 gorgeous mashup. We get clips of them on stage, pulling this Sabrina cameo surprise. And then Taylor says, Sabrina is like a shooting star. She is so smart. She knows exactly how to entertain people in the way that they want in the moment that she's in. She's just like battling herself for number one on the charts all summer. And when you see that happen, you're just like, go, fly higher. And then it's even cooler when like someone like this will circle back and bless us with their magic. I love this clip because we really get to see how Taylor supports and mentors younger artists. Like, she's the one who feels blessed that Sabrina is coming back to the show. I'm sure Sabrina feels like the lucky one performing, not opening for Taylor Swift, but performing with her. Like, that's incredible. But we know that this is Taylor's MO. She lifts up other artists. She watches them soar. I would not be surprised if at some point in the future she starts her own label or her own management company, because there is a lot of mentorship in this doc, and we know that the lessons that Taylor's learned, those would be so incredibly valuable to people trying to come up in the industry. So we say goodbye to Sabrina. Now we're heading back to Wiley, who's about to step up on stage for Ready for It. We see him fighting his nerves, and he says that basically, like, he has to block out how big this tour is, like how much of an impact it has, or else he would not be able to do that. You have to kind of like shut that out and just do what you do. And he also says, all I want to do is represent Taylor well. We are extensions of her right now in this job. I just want to continue the message of what she's trying to say, and I want to give that integrity to it. And I love the contrasting point of view between Wiley and the dancers and Taylor, where like Wiley says, we are extensions of her, but from Taylor's point of view, they work together. Like she said of Jesseline, we sing together. Yes, they know who's boss, but I don't think you'll ever see Taylor pull the boss card because she doesn't have to. She's earned her position and she maintains this quiet authority, but it's never out of fear or out of shame. It's leadership through respect. Like, she respects everyone around her and they therefore respect her. And that is absolutely the way to go about leadership, is this integrity and taking care of your team and seeing each and every one of them, not just as human beings, but as important and individuals in their own rights, like with their own desires and dreams. So while Wiley is out on stage, all of the dancers who don't need to be getting ready for the next era, they're all watching him and cheering him on. And I love this support. There's no sniping. There's no jealousy. There's no, he took my spot, that was my dance. Like, there's just supporting one another and lifting one another up. And I think that's really because of Taylor and because of the people that she chooses to keep in this close work family. That's the attitude, right? Like, she sets the tone. And the tone is kindness and appreciation and just being grateful and supporting all of them for exactly who they are. And Wiley expands on this after the performance. He says, I'm even more honored that I get to share the stage with someone who sees me. And not only sees me, she celebrates me. I want to be that example for anybody, male, female, non-binary. I want them to feel seen, just like how I feel seen by Taylor. We hear from Sam, another one of the male dancers, and he says, the kindness that she's brought into the workplace is unheard of, and it rubs off on all of us. So we hear from the dancers, but I think we can also apply their words of how Taylor behaves and what Taylor means to them. We can apply that to all of us because that's the example she sets. She makes us feel seen through the music, and she makes us feel like we're a part of something bigger. And her kindness, like Sam says, is unheard of. You will never, ever talk to someone who met her and hear them complaining about her attitude or her behavior. You will never once hear that. And to know that she is the kind of person that the younger generation are looking up to. And even I'm older than her, I look up to her. But like, she's this kind of beacon for kindness and positivity. That gives me some kind of hope for the future, some kind of hope for our leadership. Maybe pop stars, any other kind of public figure will see this example that she's setting and decide to follow it. And that's the best thing that she can do, is just set this example and set the tone for all of us. Now we're still in Indy and we are about to get some incredible insight from Taylor as she is on her way to the stadium. There's a massive billboard like plastered on the side of a hotel and it's Taylor like 25 stories tall. And this gets her thinking, of course, about the metaphor of it all because this is how she thinks. She tells us, I used to have this joke and that's part of why I wrote Antihero. I'm a 5'10" woman followed around by a 500-foot tall monster shadow. This monster just knocks over buildings and wreaks all of this havoc. And me being that size on a hotel, that's kind of how it feels sometimes. What she's talking about here is the fame monster. That's what I labeled it in my Showgirl summary video. It's one of the huge themes on Showgirl. And Taylor, of course, referred to this kind of shadow self as a monster on the hill in Antihero. And this is the paradox. The showgirl is bigger than the girl. And all of this, the corporation, the Swiftnomics, the fans, the celebrity, the reputation, it's all now so much bigger than just her. And that's a major conflict in the life of a showgirl, is that when the show outgrows the girl, what happens to the girl? What does that mean for the girl? And that's exactly what she's talking about here. She sees this huge image of herself as tall as a building. And that's what Taylor Swift Inc. feels like. It feels like this monster that destroys cities following her around, just destroying everything in its path. But I am curious how her feelings on this have changed now that her personal life is in a better place. And I wish we got to hear a little bit more on this. Maybe we will in episodes 5 or 6. I hope we get to hear whether she still feels like the monster on the hill now that she is with someone who also has a very large celebrity status, large reputation. We'll see. Maybe she'll update us. But we are now turning to the indie shows, which wraps up the final US leg of the tour before they go finish in Canada. She's reflecting on what it means to be giving people this bit of hope and optimism, this like 3.5-hour break from being alive, 5 days before the presidential election. They can check out of reality for a little bit. And she says that that's all she can do. She can only give, quote, 100% girlhood and hope and belief and sweat and effort because that's the job. She's now in the dressing room with her mom, planning the surprise songs for the night, and we hear that Travis is coming to the show. So she says she's going to do the prophecy into This Love on guitar and Maroon into Cowboy Like Me on piano. You see a theme for when Travis is coming? It feels like a message about their relationship. And of course, this is the night when we get one of the most memorable lines to ever come out of the acoustic set. This love changed the prophecy. Nailed it. Incredible mashup, one of my favorites. Then we get a little bit more insight into past relationships versus present relationships. Relationships on tour have always been something I've really struggled with because it always felt like the tour was taking away from the relationship. Somehow I was never able to do both and feel like I was nurturing both at the same time, even though I would try and try and try. Somehow there's been this dynamic shift with Travis because it's shocking how many similarities we have towards our jobs and how we view them and how we view each other. We both have jobs where we go out into NFL stadiums and entertain people for 3.5 hours. His with considerably more violence than mine, but he's not in heels. But it's our passion. We've been chasing this since we were little kids. So I don't think I ever thought I would meet a guy who had the same trajectory. And I've realized that with this person in my life that was just the right fit for me, you can have the two passions coexist and they can actually fuel each other. Whew, she just said so much there. But what is most remarkable to me is this realization that she wasn't doing it wrong. She wasn't failing in relationships just because she'd have to go on tour or have other commitments for her job. She was just with the wrong person. And once she found the right one, there is no more juggling act of trying to please everyone, which is exactly how relationships should be. You should never feel like pursuing your passion will be detrimental to your relationship or that you can't do what you love because it will make your partner unhappy. She's finally found that balance. And she's learned that it wasn't her. It wasn't her fault. And this is a big realization, and it is lovely to see. So we see her cheering for Travis as he's playing. She's in her dressing room or doing physio or something, and just huge smile across her face. She's so proud of him, cheering at the television. And she says, ultimately, we love cheering each other on. And then we see Travis cheering her on at the indie shows. And she just grins and says, that's rad. And then we hear Bejeweled over this Travis cheering for her. And the first line we hear is, a diamond's gotta shine, which is the perfect lyric for everything she just talked about. We see Trav dancing at the show, watching her, and the crowd bracelets are shimmering in the background as he bops along. I can still make the whole place shimmer. She gets to shine, he gets to shine, and there's no jealousy or envy or hard feelings. There is just genuine love and support. And you can tell that they not only love one another, but they also just really like each other. And she tells us that since they started dating, people started showing up to the Eras Tour wearing Chiefs gear. She says, like, every 12th person has his jersey on. And then she tells us the fans absolutely love Travis, and I think it's because they can tell he loves them too. But Taylor, girl, I have to stop you right there. We love Travis, not only because he seems like a great, genuine guy. We love Travis because he loves you. We have watched you kiss so many frogs and have your heart broken so many times, and we've felt that. Because in singing about your breakups, you're singing about ours too. Like, we wear the Chiefs merch and love seeing Travis at the show because of how he loves you, how he supports you. Just PSA to Taylor Swift, that's why. That's why we're all into Travis, because he's into you. She says a little bit more. Travis is very comfortable with, conceptually speaking, a big life because he has one. And it's not one that he has reluctantly. He's very comfortable with it. And it's here that I have to think back to certain ex-boyfriends who were not comfortable with a big life. You're dating Taylor Swift. You knew what you got into. And so it is so great to see her with someone who not only embraces the spotlight, but embraces her spotlight. Not just his own, but embraces her spotlight. I think ultimately it's the way he treats me, she says. It's very clear. And I think that's one of the reasons why the fans are so in love with him. Because you should be, you know? He's very lovable. Yes, Taylor, that is more like it. We love him because he loves you, and you are precious to us. And we don't ever want to see you have your heart broken again. Even though we love the heartbreak songs, we don't want you to go through that again. As we wrap up the episode, we see Travis waiting for her on the pulley cart thing. I really want to know what that's called. Under the stage, which is so cute. And he waits to see her the moment she comes down from the lift. And then we get one last voiceover from Taylor. First of all, if you would have ever told me that like the most meaningful relationship I would ever have would start with a man saying that he was butthurt that I didn't want to meet him, like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. The final shot is of them walking out under the stage together, and we hear Karma playing, the perfect track for this new relationship, for this new outlook on life, this new trajectory. Karma is the guy on the Chiefs. So that was episode 4. Thank you for the lovely bouquet. And now after the contents of the episode, the title can mean multiple different things. The most obvious, of course, is the massive bouquet she got from Travis, where she says he doesn't even have to sign the card anymore. But the second is Wiley's story. Thank you for the lovely bouquet. In that context means thank you for seeing me and appreciating me for who I am. You know, thank you for letting me be me and giving me this opportunity to shine. And then the third interpretation is, after all this time and all of these years and all of this hard work and heartbreak and not being able to find someone who can keep up and withstand the spotlight, Travis is the bouquet. Thank you for the lovely bouquet. He's the reward. He's what she deserved all along. She doesn't need to catch the bouquet because she already has it. It's hers. So what did you guys think of these 2 episodes? We just got so vulnerable and personal, like, not just from Taylor, but from everyone. And I have no idea how they're going to top that in episodes 5 and 6. My guess is that since we are in Indy in this episode, we will be going along to 6 shows in Toronto and then the final 3 in Vancouver, BC for the final 2 episodes. since Taylor moved up the dates of the releases, they're now coming out on the 23rd. I will try to get you a recap out as soon as I can, but it's Christmas. It probably won't come until at least the 26th, 27th if I'm hustling. But you guys, when you watch them on the 23rd, please keep an eye out for me. I might be in the Eras Tour documentary. I'm wearing a red striped shirt in that TikTok. I really hope they use it. We'll see. I will be screaming all over the internet if I make it into the doc, but tell me in the comments what your favorite moments of these episodes were, and what are your predictions for the final two? Are we going to get any surprises? Are we going to get any announcements? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a restful holiday, and I'll see you next time.
That's it for this chapter of Swiftly Sung Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps other Swifties find their way here. I'm Jen, and I had a marvelous time reading everything with you. See you next time.